Wait for it. Wait for it. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one, well, we can't call her a dependent because apparently that's like a Karen. So I got to come up with a better word. But we got Madam Stabby over here, and we're geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, see, I messed myself up this time, but I am told that if I call her a dependent again, she will cut me.
First, she's going to cut me.
Well, she'll probably cut Nick for being my friend, and then she'll cut me. She might even.
I want to send her a razor, one of those nice, shaving razors.
She likes the kitchen knife. She's a Michael Myers fan.
I mean, if we're going to get the straight razors to do it, can we at least get the sponsorship to go with it?
By Gillette.
By Gillette. Madam Stabby Stab by Gillette.
All right.
Whoa,
Sean, can you tell us?
Friends by Gillette.
You've been on the show.
The New England Patriots.
He's bleeding out. Please ignore his shenanigans. So, Sean, you've been on the show before, but can you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers who didn't listen to your poetic rants about Star Trek?
Oh, God, I love Star Trek. My name is Sean McCune, a.k.a. Gun Guy, if you ever catch me on Discord. Love to play games. Big science fiction, nerd buff, fantasy, everything from Tolkien to Larry Niven's Ringworld, and I love Ringworld, and I'm telling you that is probably one of the better things. I love Star Trek. All the people who write Star Trek, I also like Star Wars, a little bit of Star Wars here and there, but I love Star Trek. And my thing is I've written several short stories. I'm currently working on several much larger stories that are taking its toll on me. I've been down because I had to have this hand here worked on with some carpal tunnel. In a couple of weeks, I'm going to have this hand done. So that kind of limited my typing ability for a while. But I did get somebody to suggest that I go ahead and do the voice thing through Google, and I haven't tried it yet. I think I messed with it a little bit, but I haven't really tried it yet. So that's a possibility because I'm still going to be out for the next month and a half. As this heals up, and then this one, my right hand will get done here in about a week or two, and then hopefully about a month after that, I'll be able to go back to my day job, which is working, which is something everybody has to do. You got to earn money. Personally, I think I think that Star Trek is probably one of the better genres, although secretly I am wishing that they come out with another Firefly and this time go multiple seasons, only because I absolutely loved the characters. And I want Nathan Fillion back. I want him back. I don't care if he plays the grandfather of a rambunctious daughter that takes after him, or granddaughter that takes after him. I don't care. I want Firefly back.
If I had my way, Nathan Fillion would be starred in everything. He's an amazing actor.
He is. That one show where he's the cop.
Castle.
Oh my God.
Oh no, the rookie.
Castle's great. I love Castle.
Castle's great too. The writer turned kind of cop.
The writer and his acting ability is just fantastic. You put him in so many different situations, some funny situations in there. I'm like, man, this guy's, he's versatile. He is. He can play, a Wild West in space cowboy captain. Yeah. He can play, he could play a writer and murder mystery type person. I mean, almost in the vein of Columbo type of things, where they go in and then you've got you've got him playing an actual cop. There for a while, I thought he kind of reminded me of T.J. Hooker with an actual personality, but I thought he was fantastic.
I think
like
DC Warner Brothers missed the mark. He should have been the Green Lantern, and they casted him as the detachable kid in Suicide Squad. So that bars him from ever playing the Green Lantern in future DC movies.
So the only problem with
he could do a reboot.
The one thing I like that they did with the Castle one is they actually hired a ghostwriter to write as crime novels for the fictional writer from the TV show.
Yep.
And then they used Nathan Fillion's picture from the Castle thing, from the actual blurb about the author, that it was his, headshot, is now on the back of the Castle books too. Like that character actually wrote them. I think that's genius marketing.
A brilliant marketing.
So hopefully the books were decent. I saw them at Barnes & Noble once. I didn't actually buy them, but I did look at them. So that's something. All right. And what about you, Madam Stabby Jr., Maddie Stabby? So what can you tell us about yourself?
About myself? Honestly, there's not much to say. I'm just a really big horror fan. I'd love to write horror movies one day. That's what I'm trying to do right now. I like to write scripts, and I'm writing a script for a horror movie right now. And honestly, it's just my passion. It's my favorite thing. So.
And you've seen her here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Do you have a weak stomach?
A weak stomach? No.
So like nothing creeps you out?
No, I could watch any movie, watch anything, be perfectly fine.
So if you went on Fear Factor and they said, stick your hand in that box, you're sticking your hand in the box?
It depends on what's in the box.
Well, that's part of the Fear Factors. You don't always know.
I've never seen Fear Factor, honestly.
At me.
What's that, Stabby?
I said this girl threw Madagascar hissing cockroaches at me.
Like held them in her hand.
She put her hand in the box and then threw them.
Yeah,
so put her hand in the box. We came.
I put my hand in the box.
Okay, so what kind of horror movies do you like to write?
Right now I'm actually working on a Scream script, my own version. So that's what I'm working on right now. What I want to work on in the future is kind of something more psychological, paranormal.
Hellraiser.
Okay. So if you were going to get involved in it, would you be want to get in front of the screen too, or are you perfectly happy staying behind the screen and directing and writing?
I'd probably get in front of the screen like a little bit, like maybe a couple minutes of screen time, like just kind of a background character, whatever.
Who is it? Mel Brooks? Is he the one that the guy that did a cameo in every movie he made?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That could be you. Every movie you're in, you're like the first dead body they find.
Pretty much.
That could be your thing.
What did Stephen King say? He said every time I cameo in one of my movies, it flops.
Nobody has bought a book of his in like 10 years.
Well, he can't nail a landing, but anyway. All right. So this would not be the blast. Yeah, I'm sorry. Stephen King cannot write anything.
We put Stephen King on blast as part of the Blasters and Blades podcast.
I mean, the dude's selling millions, so like he's gonna laugh all the way to the bank while we're sleeping on our normal pillows. He's gonna be sleeping
in my
on
humble opinion,
money.
As far as Stephen King goes. His first couple of books, I think, were probably very good. He got attention. He got a lot of publicity, and that's what sold everything. But people don't realize when you get to be that big and you put out that many books a year, there is no way. The average, in Larry Correa, for example, is a prime example. You can put out 3-4 books a year if that's all you do. I mean, all you do. You don't have family, you don't have friends, you don't have pets. That's all you do, and you truly put out some good work, 3-4 books a year, and you pimp them like hell. Stephen King has an entire staff of writers. He is the director. He reads through it, and that's all he does. He reads through everything and approves yes, no, change it here, change it there, and then a couple other people who also help change it. And he just mills out all of this stuff because he has a bunch of other people working under contract to write a lot of books. This is a well-known fact. Same thing with Steele. Same thing with what was his name?
Kuntz?
Yeah, Kuntz.
Isn't Patterson doing that too?
Yeah, a lot of them are doing it because they get so big. They got the ideas. They know where the story needs to go. All they do is they hire on a bunch of writers to write the bulk of it, and then they pick and choose the best parts of it. And then to be the writer, they go in and they basically cut and paste and change it to how they want it. Editors go through it. Everything goes through it. Make sure you have your copy editor and your grammar and your spelling fixed, and then you have the continuity person comes through to make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be, history, items, etc., and they do a double check on everything. That's the way they do it, and it's a big business for them. But I mean, when you're making hundreds of millions of dollars in your career, you can afford to do that. But I mean, when one book goes out and he sells 1 million before it's even sold, you have libraries buying it by the million load and stocking it up because people are going to read it. Same thing. You sell it on Amazon, you get pre-orders blow out the doors. Oh, it's the latest Stephen King novel, it's the latest Kuntz novel, latest Steele novel, boom. And I'm telling you, the person who writes is Daniel Steele, or the person who is Daniel Steele is making it left and right. If there's a person named Daniel Steele, because it very well could be like that. There's that. I think there's a New York Post or Washington Post. One of those newsrooms decided they were going to have the writers write a book together, and they were going to put one person, a female, out there, and she was going to be the face of it. You probably remember it was going to be the face of it, and she said, I wrote the book, and she read it, and everybody loved the book. Everybody was all praises, New York Times bestselling, and it was written badly to begin with. And they only did it to prove sex sells. And that's what sold the book. Every chapter was lurid. Just the book was called Thy Neighbor's Wife. You remember it?
Yeah. I
that was written by an entire I think Donahue. I think they made a thing on Donahue where she came on. Yes, she had 2 big Afghan hounds and everything. But if you can get a staff to write most of the bulk stuff for you, and you have the ideas and you have the characters and everything in your brain, hey, I would do it if I was making that kind of money.
Oh, absolutely.
So
on to religion.
Hold on. So I will say that there are writers that write a crap ton of words every year, and their books are still good. Rick Partlow, I know him personally. Brandon Sanderson doesn't seem to have a problem producing like a gazillion words a year. So it can be done. It's definitely a skill.
It has to be pretty much exactly. You have to be able to fly on the keyboard. You have all your thoughts down, and I know a lot of them will sit down and they'll write out all their story in like on a spreadsheet or something. Say, this is where I'm starting, this is the middle, and this is the end of this particular story. This is the stuff that I want in it, and they outline it real quick, and then they go on to the next one. They have ideas, they put it down. One of the writers that I know personally, he basically told me, get an idea, you write it down. Get a thought that you want to put something in a book, write it down. If you have some situation that happens that you think would be good for a book, write it down. And as long as you have it written down, it's there. You can go back, peruse. Oh yeah, I want that in my book.
All right. So Maddie, are you ready for the Maddie Stabby Jr.? Wow, you're Madam and Maddie. This is on purpose, right? You did this on purpose.
Yeah.
I know this is a setup from the get up. All right. So Maddie Stabby Jr. All right. Are you ready for the religion questions? All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly? And go.
Which one do you like the most?
She probably likes all 3 or hasn't seen Firefly.
I haven't seen Firefly or Star Trek, so I'm just gonna go with Star Wars.
Atta girl.
I've seen probably like 1 or 2 episodes of Star Trek, so
that's okay.
Okay. All right. And because we
That's my niece, ladies and gentlemen, my niece.
All right, and because we are polytheistic here on the Blasters and Blades podcast, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Lord of the Rings?
Or Stranger Things.
I've never seen any of those, so I'm just gonna go with Lord of the Rings.
Stranger.
There are books too, in words on paper. Alrighty, and because Madam Stabby wants to prove that we are civilized human beings and not knuckle-dragging troglodytes, coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Coffee with a lot of creamer.
That is perfectly acceptable. I actually double brew the strength of my coffee, so when I add the creamer, it's still regular strength coffee. Sometimes I drink it before I... Go ahead.
I've had JR's coffee. I didn't sleep for a week.
I'm just saying.
I put my spoon in there to judge, quality, and it stood straight up. And actually, that was last week. I still need it. So tonight I might sleep.
Well, one time we accidentally put the Red Bull instead of the water, and then it was just ugly. I mean,
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
I could see sounds and hear
Oh,
colors. It was
God.
amazing.
okay. All right. And now that we've got that out of the way, we're going to talk about the topic that got us all together. And if you heard the intro, you can guess, but it's slashers and the art of the stabby stab. So, first off, what makes a slasher movie different from other forms of horror? And go.
Ooh. Hold on, Stabby. You want... Maddie, why don't
Honestly,
you start us off?
I think what makes slashers different from more, I guess you could say, psychological horror is it's kind of just some sloppy wall-to-wall jump scares and some people getting stabbed left and right rather than let's say the Babadook, for instance. It's more like emotional and complex rather than some just sloppy mess put together, honestly.
What's the term they use for that, Maddie? Is it elevated horror?
Elevated
Like
horror.
the Babadook? Elevated horror,
Yep.
or eyebrow horror.
Yeah.
I love Flicker and the Babadook
Twice.
twice.
But it's
All right.
okay.
Stabby, do you agree with that? Do you agree with your protege? I can speak.
Protege.
So, yes and no. I love a psychological horror if it's done right. It came out so well. And as much as everybody tries to say, Pennywise is not considered psychological horror, it's, alien, it's sci-fi horror and everything like that. If you think about it, he appears to each person as what they fear the most. He shows up as the lady in the painting. He shows up as the leper, as the clown, as this, that, and the other. Like, it is definitely psychological. Whereas in a slasher, it goes one of two ways. Like, in my vision, I'd have to say it goes one of two ways. It is either straight up revenge or wrong place, wrong time. So, in Scream, and I mean every single one of the 6 movies that are out, it's nothing but revenge. It's revenge for the disrespect that her mom gave. It's revenge for my dad. It's revenge for my son. It's revenge for my brother. Whereas Halloween is that babysitter was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and Michael Myers just fell in love. He had to get a little bit of that blood.
He didn't fall in love. He has OCD.
Got finished the job. And she poked him in the eyeball. But,
You're a little too happy to be talking about poking people in eyeballs.
I live
But-
with this, Taylor.
like, then you have slashers that are slashers, but they're also psychological. I.e. Freddy Krueger. Because he's in your dreams. But he's cutting you up. So, you kind of, it really depends on how you personally view and feel watching horror movies. With me, I love a good slasher. I love a good slasher. I like when people are like, he's the killer, he's his sidekick, and they're just messing people up because his mama was mad. That is the best storyline ever. I love it. I'm horrible. I know. I know.
This week on Therapy with Madam Stabby Stab. Okay.
No, we keep them on
After
retainer.
her thing, I think we're going to have some therapy.
All right. So, what do you think about what makes a slasher separate from other forms of horror, Sean?
Well, I think if you go back to the B movie scream queens that were on constantly, I mean, there was constant TNA, there was sexual innuendo involved. It was like Madam Stabby Stab said, it a lot of it would be revenge or something went awry. Some of those actually took off, like what was that movie involved the car catch fire.
Christine?
No, not Christine.
Right.
Maybe no, maybe
Did the
Christine?
car try to kill people?
Yes. And it would
Christine.
take over, and whoever, Christine, and whoever would drive that car would be taken over by the spirit of the car, and to me that ticked all the boxes, because the spirit of that young lady who got raped and murdered and such ended up being a part of that car, and people talk about, well, but that would never happen. I disagree. I think the energy that we leave as human beings, regardless of your religious beliefs, the energy that we convey in our lives here can remain an echo, or as an echo, having the same spiritual energy, soul energy, if you will, to do things. My uncle swears up and down that my grandmother, his mother, my grandparents passed away, but my uncle took the house. He was renovating the house, and without even cooking anything, just the smell of bacon would come wafting in about 1-2 o'clock in the morning, and he would go, "Mom, quit it." And just like that, the smell of fried bacon would go away.
Why would you want the smell of bacon?
My grandmother would get up in the middle of the night and she'd make bacon and tomato sandwiches, or she would make bacon and then she would have fried eggs in bacon grease, and she would cook the eggs and make toast or have bread, and she would dip it in the egg yolk and eat it at night, and then she'd go back to bed, and then she'd be back up about 5 o'clock in the morning to get my grandfather off to work. That, when I heard him say that in that house that I had partially grown up in, it put the hackles on the back of my neck. I'm go, yeah. Yeah, because there was some things about my great grandfather and my great grandmother had both visited, and one of them, I can't remember which one, but one of them had died in the house, and my grandmother would talk to them when she was still alive. My grandmother was half Cherokee, half Sephardic Jew, and she is very much into spirits that were there, and omens and stuff. I mean, we had this bird come in and hit the window on our back door and fell down dead, broke its neck. And my grandmother said, "You're not going to school today." And I was like, "Cause a bird ran into the window and broke its neck?" She said, it's a bad omen. You're not going out." And we didn't go out. I don't know, why, other than she said, "We're not going to school," and we didn't go to school. Now,
my great grandmother would do that. She would randomly be looking at me, and she'd be like, "Marissa, do you smell that?" And I'd be looking at her, and I'm like, "Smells like peppermint tobacco." She goes, "That's Grandpa." Grandpa's been gone for years. She goes, "I don't smoke. You don't smoke. We're the only ones in the house." And I was just sitting there like, now every time I smell peppermint tobacco, I'm like,
Grandpa?
Grandpa? Great grandpa, technically, but
great grandpa. Now,
so Nick,
that's my ideas on the slashers. Just There was a bunch of Scream Queens, and it was B movie, but it was fun stuff. You'd go there, and they'd have this typical trope. They'd hear something, or they'd suspect something. They'd get up, and this girl, would be like walking over to the door, and we'd be reaching for the door and be screaming, "Don't open the door!" She'd open the door and open up, nothing's there. And then she would close the door, and she'd turn around, she'd hear, turn around, the door slowly opening, and she's like, "What in the world?" She'd go to close it, and the thing would bust open, and here comes the thing that, eek!
Yeah, I was rewatching Psycho the other day, the Anthony Perkins one.
1960 version?
1960, that's right, the OG, with Janet Leigh, mother of Jamie Lee Curtis, the modern Scream Queen, if you will. And I tried to watch it as a viewer that has never had any knowledge of the slasher genre or anything like that. I tried to take it in as like a first-time viewer in 1960, and it was difficult to do. Required a lot of booze to get me into that mindset, because I've seen a lot of slashers. It's one of my favorite genres in horror, besides possession and exorcisms and things like that. Those are the ones that really just chill my bones and gives me the heebie-jeebies. But it was a really well-made movie, and in that thought process, in that mindset, it's like, man, you like a first-time viewer would have suspected that Norman was the slasher, because they did it so well, and he was so quick in the change out between. And it's not a spoiler. I mean, the movie came out in 1960. People, if you complain to Stabby with the hate mail that I spoiled Psycho for you, I need you to go grab a tack hammer and hit yourself repeatedly in the forehead with it. Because it's not a spoiler. So, but watching that and watching how Norman was like this awkward person, but had some charisma to him too. It's like you wanted to trust him. You wanted to tell him things. You felt safe with him, not knowing that he was a killer that got too attached. And then, the other side of his brain, which was mother, it's like, you got to kill her. You got to kill her, And then we get a little bit of that later on, about 20 years later, when we start dealing with Friday the 13th. Well, part 2, actually, when you start getting an introduction to Jason. But I digress. Well-made movie.
I think a slasher, by definition, it involves something sharp, stabbying, hence the slasher as the name. So knives, chainsaws, scalpels. I don't think a murder show where it's a gun is going to qualify as a slasher, because
absolutely not. No, you're absolutely right. It has to be a bladed weapon of some kind, arrow.
It has to be personally involved. It has to be a personal act.
Yeah, I think anytime you kill someone that close, it is definitely personal. It's not as impersonal as shooting someone from 300, 600 meters and farther. And then I looked it up. Critics cite the Italian Giallo, Giallo, Giallo films and psychological horror.
Means yellow.
Okay. Psychological horror films such as Peeping Tom and Psycho from the 60s as early influences on the slasher genre. The genre hit its peak between 78 and 84, referred to as the Golden Age. And then anything that came after is either falls into the classical era, the self-referential, which I think is more tongue-in-cheek. So that's the 94 to 60 when Scream came out, that range, where it's sort of almost taking itself not too seriously. And then, of course, now they call them neo-slashers.
Yeah, but you also have the time reference is wrong. The Italians were doing this stuff long before the Americans were. So when you talk about American slashers, we were stealing a lot of stuff from Fauci. We were stealing a lot of stuff from
not that one, people.
Not that one. No, the cool one, the one that does horror.
The Italians were doing.
I mean, I guess the other one did horror too. But like I'm talking the one from the Italian guy. I'm sorry, Sean,
the Italians were doing some of this stuff back in the 20s and 30s.
Oh yeah, them and the Germans.
Very early film. Yes.
They were the first ones to create horror. Who was it? It wasn't Alexander Graham Bell that created the.
You mean talking Marconi? Marconi.
Yeah. So word gets to the old world about this great invention that'll record pictures in motion, and they make things like Nosferatu.
One of the
Silent
best
era film, but
films
probably one of the
ever.
scariest damn films you'll ever watch.
They worked their butts off to make it just appear that he appeared in it
he was tall, he was lanky, his face was weird, it was unshapen, it was amazing. And then you leap forward another 30, 40 years, you're doing Bay of Blood, which is Friday the 13th ripped off a lot of their kills from Bay of Blood, and that's an Italian horror classic. You got things like Tenebrae, another Italian giallo film.
That one was messed up.
One of the most messed up slashers I've ever seen, and definitely, and it fits slasher and psychological thriller because it was definitely a whodunit. But the kills were amazing; they were slasher-esque. There was blood everywhere. Like that chick gets her hand cut off, and it squirts all over the wall. It's almost beautiful with the contrast to the color.
Wild.
Oh, look, Jason Pollock.
Yeah, Jason Pollock in blood, but
downfall though. She
ta-da!
awesome.
Yeah, it was just like
my hand cut off. Let me see if I can write.
So Maddie, since we're talking slashers, do you remember what your first slasher was?
Halloween. It was Halloween. I saw it, I don't know, maybe when I was 6 or 7, long time ago.
Okay. Do you remember being scared, or did you just laugh? Because people have different reactions to horror movies.
I wasn't really scared. I was just trying to comprehend what was going on. I was like, oh, okay, this guy's going around killing people. I don't know why, but he's doing it.
She went from Scooby-Doo mysteries to Michael Myers mysteries.
That's a big jump.
I won't say it was my fault, but I will say that we watch a lot of horror movies in this family.
So you're not saying it was your fault, but you're also not going to deny that it might have been your Blockbuster card. All right, Nick, I think that non-answer is an answer, and we will move on. All right, so Sean, what was your first slasher film that you watched?
Oh, Psycho.
Okay.
After that, we started watching a bunch of the normal slasher flicks like Halloween, Friday the 13th. A lot of the films that were horror that we watched, which weren't necessarily, well, I guess you could call it slasher or reverse slasher, was the early films of the early vampire films, where there was a lot of blood. And you had a lot of people getting things slashed and cut, and zombie films, I think, were probably some of the best that I had for like horror films. But as far as like some of the first slasher flicks, definitely Psycho. I'd consider Psycho one of those psychological thrillers as well. But the basis for pretty much everything that's in America is probably 1960s Psycho. There were probably a few films before that. I don't have the names in my head. I'm looking up on IMDb right now, trying to remember which one it is, but it was just it just, there wasn't anything in the world but taking $1 and maybe $2 that you earned, going to the Saturday matinee and going in and watching either a Western or watching one of those slasher films or one of the horror films that were coming up. And we did that because we can go in there, get a $1 matinee, and have $1 for popcorn and a bag of candy.
Oh, what a time.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's like $90 just for concessions at the movie theater.
There's a reason that you go with a female who brings a purse and you just slide stuff in there.
Don't tell our secrets.
Oh wait,
Stabby brings a backpack, so it's like
I bring a backpack.
We just pull everything out of there.
Here's some of the, if you go to IMDb, you look up the horror films by release date. There's a bunch of them. The Conjuring of a Woman at the House of Robert Houdin, The House of the Devil, A Nightmare, A Terrible Night, Faust apparition de Mephistopheles or Mephistopheles. Yeah, the X-ray fiend.
That's a good one.
So they have a lot of these in here. I'm trying to get back up to like the 1920s.
I just looked that up the other day. On
was
the
it
website.
the Island of Dr. Caribre? That was also a silent film era one. That was just insane.
Well, one of the better films I thought was very psychological was as a horror film was The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That is probably one of the better ones. The Devil.
Hey babe.
God, they got like 219,000 titles in here.
What was your first?
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. That's the one I was looking at. Trying to remember 1908, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Good movie.
That was such a good movie.
Yeah, that's a good one. And the special effects are amazing. The transition technology that they developed for that.
So, Nick, what was your first slasher?
My parents didn't really let me watch horror movies, even though they enjoyed horror movies. At least my mom did. My mom loved to be scared, but she thought I was too young. So my first introduction into horror, especially the slasher genre, is my buddy. His first name was Ron. I can't remember his last name for the life of me because that was 30-something years ago. But he's like, "Hey, man, I got this movie. It's a horror movie. Why don't we go to my house before you go home and let's watch it?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I should. My parents don't want me to watch horror movies." Yeah, I think that'll be okay. And he puts in Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives. The introduction of zombie Jason. And he turns it on, and I'm kind of scared, and I'm looking around. His parents aren't home. I'm like, I'm feeling like I'm doing something wrong, And then they start digging him up. And then, what's his name? Anyway, one of the protagonists starts beating the hell out of Jason. It's like, "Oh my God, you killed my mom. You did this, you did that." And then he gets mad, and he takes this wrought iron stake from the cemetery and stabs at him, and lightning hits it. And then Jason starts coming back to life. And he pops up, and he puts his mask on, and he punches a hole through a dude from Welcome Back, Carter. And then I was like, I fell in love right there. I was like, this is my dude. This is awesome. And then I begged and proclaimed and confessed my love of horror to my parents. I came out of the horror closet. I'm a degenerate. I'm slime. I know I'm into weird and sick things. I get it, but I need more. And
you just reminded me of one of the better horror films, The Wax Museum.
Oh, that's a good one too. Was that the one with Vincent Price?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, speaking of slashers and horrors, Vincent Price, classic actor in all of those. Classic actor. And he covered a whole range of them.
House of Usher.
Oh, yes. House of
Murders in the
Usher.
Rue Morgue. Pit and the Pendulum.
Oh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Talk about psychological and being a slasher type thing. That's, yes.
For today's vernacular, we call that a mind F. Man, nothing. I thought that joke hit so hard in my head, and it just fell flat.
Sorry, honey. I was ready.
Thanks, baby. Thanks for the support.
I was looking up things on IMDb real quick. Sorry.
So I would say, I don't know. I thought, I don't know. For me, the kind of horror that I always watched when I would watch it was more of the Alfred Hitchcock style, which I guess was more psychological thriller. So for me, I think the first actual slasher I watched was the Scream stuff, and those were more almost parodies of themselves or of the genre.
I would say an argument on regards to Hitchcock was that they were slashers.
Well, Birds was what comes to mind as the scariest movie I ever watched.
Oh my God, that is!
Yeah,
I just watched that today too. It's
the original black and white. The music that they do for
I'm sorry, I watched the Technicolor version. Forgive me.
Yeah, but it's the same. It's the same thing. I mean, the original, because they did a remake. I'm pretty sure.
I don't think they've remade that movie. They've remade Psycho,
which we watched.
So you have remakes and sequels of the Psycho franchise. As far as I can tell, hold on, doing my quick research. Birds has never been remade.
All
It's
right. Well,
probably one of
then,
the untouched bastions of cinematic history.
Well, they did several TV adaptations, didn't they?
maybe. I don't.
Maybe I didn't really see it on my research. It could be. I don't know. We'll stick Stabby Stab on it. She is the queen of horror and research for this program.
He's also the resident Google guru.
Yeah, the Google guru.
Yes, I was right. The Birds was in 1963. Then you got the. No, they did make one. Hold on. Let me click on it. They should have.
Was it a made for TV?
I think there was a made for TV. IMDb says The Birds, 1963, Alfred Hitchcock. There's black and white and color. And they don't have anything else listed. They got the Thorn Birds, Angry Birds, Yellow Birds, Birds of Prey.
Yeah, as far as
I'm
I can
looking
tell, I
up
don't think it's ever
movies.
been remade.
Actually, it's
crap.
currently in development.
No way.
Does it say who's
Exclusive. The Birds remake is in development with Scarlett Johansson.
Atta girl.
The classic Alfred Hitchcock horror, The Birds, is being remade with her in the lead role.
Interesting.
All right. Well, mark your calendars, kids.
Does it say when that's date?
Well, considering that was released at the end of 2022, and we are currently in the middle of that strike.
We are currently in the middle of a strike in Hollywood, yes. So look for
We're recording this in the middle of September, so you're listening to this a couple weeks later. Obviously, you get the theme and why we released it when we did. So who knows? Maybe they've broken the strike by then. Maybe not.
let's hope so. There's some good shows that are on hot standby because of this thing.
Yeah.
Hey, studios, pay them. Pay them the money. I need entertainment.
All right. Well, with that being said, Stabby, did you answer what your first slasher movie was?
No.
Go on. We must know.
Don't be shy.
So, my first horror movie was actually It with Tim Curry. My brother forced me to watch it when I was like 5 years old. Messed me up. Scared of the bathtub for a while. But my first one my first slasher that I really just wanted to see, there was, in Las Vegas, there was a dollar theater. And certain days of the week, no matter, and this continued until just a couple years ago, didn't matter whether it was 1990s or, 2020. Well, probably not 2020. 2019. But there's a dollar theater where on Tuesdays and Thursdays you pay $1 to get it. They don't check your bags. You can bring your own snacks. It doesn't matter. But I really wanted to go see a horror movie. I really wanted it to be a slasher. And I really didn't want to go with my mom. So I got a bunch of my friends together. We went to the dollar theater. I was 16 years old, but my oldest friend was 18, and he bought us our tickets to the dollar theater to go see Halloween,
Love
1978.
notes, foreplay.
Nice.
And I fell in love with Michael Myers. It was just, that's my guy. That's my guy.
Was that before or after he married an axe murderer?
My whole thing
Different
is
Mike Myers.
Yeah, I know. My whole thing is like everybody gives him shit because they're like, "Wait, is Lori his sister?" And she was never supposed to be his sister. She was supposed to be a babysitter that just happened to walk up to that house at the wrong time, and he saw her, and obsession.
He became that meme of the dork on the dating circuit. He's like, check, I found mine.
Right. I found mine. But that was my thing. And I'd have to say, the very first movie I saw in theaters with my lovely niece was Halloween 2018.
Nice. Did you guys scream?
No.
Throw popcorn in the air like you just don't care?
No. But didn't we go see Halloween again after?
Yeah, the 2018 one.
Yep.
All right, so
I saw Halloween Ends, right?
Yeah, we saw Halloween Ends together when you came back out here, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. So Maddie, since you're looking at slashers and horror in general from the production side of things, given that you're writing scripts right now as a hobby, hoping to make a go of it. So if Hollywood is watching and your writers are on strike, she's available. She's just, she's gonna put that out there. She's available. Couldn't do any worse than what Hollywood's putting out these days. So do you think there are any tropes that are required for it to be in the slasher genre?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, honestly, pretty much what I said earlier, like all the wall-to-wall jump scares, like all the stabbing and like goring, all that, like the basic things, the basic elements you see in every slasher movie. What Madam Stabby said earlier, like I think some type of revenge should be in there because that's in most slashers you see. And with mine, that's what I'm doing right now with my script I'm making. I'm kind of making a whole revenge thing, so I think it's kind of a necessity.
Okay.
I think you need to throw in there the little bit of comedy. The getting they open the freezer and he's gonna be standing there when they close it and then they open it into his face.
Yeah.
You gotta have that, or them tripping. Like you always have to have that little tiny bit of comedy where you're like.
So have you guys, Stabby, have you seen the Geico commercial where it's the horror slasher film is the setup and they're running and they hide behind this table full of chainsaws and every sharp.
I was going to mention that earlier. You beat me.
Yeah, that is the perfect satire of the genre. Like,
why not the card? It's running and it's ready to go.
And then the killer's just
with all the hooks.
Right, and then the killer's just like shrugging and he just stares at him.
And
He's
it's
like,
the original actor
like
who played that part. Looking, he basically raises his hood, looks kind of like. It was just classic. It's like, seriously, I'm trying to sharpen something here, and seriously,
we call those characters too stupid to live. Okay, so what about you, Nick? What are common tropes you think have to be there besides the jump scares and the spraying and the little bit of comedy for a slasher?
You have to have. It originally started as the final girl trope. So you'll have the girl, and she's a horror movie version of all that is pure, even though she's not entirely pure. She probably smokes dope or whatever, but she doesn't have sex. She's the virgin. She's the bookworm. I think Laurie Strode is probably the
innocence.
Innocence. Like, she does some bad stuff here and there, but like nothing to like warrant being stalked and killed by a boogeyman, So I think it's probably one of the most important tropes, and now that trope is even transcended into modern times where we have the final guy. Never really had a final guy before. It's always been the final girl, the presence of purity and innocence, as Sean said. So that's a big trope for me. I love seeing it. It's like one of my check blocks of what makes a good slasher. I'm like, all right, cool. Tragic past history of something that happened in a school, an industrial complex, a mine, some sort of setting. All right. And then, okay, that guy didn't really die. He's now back for revenge. And we all kind of think we know who it is based on the lore, right? And then
Grandpa
watch
his teeth out on the highway years ago. Someone
right.
picked them up, and until they're returned, everyone that goes by this spot's going to have a flat tire, and that tire's going to have a hole in it, like a pair of false teeth.
You also need bitches be tripping.
I'm sorry, is that a technical term? Bitches be tripping?
Bitches be tripping.
Literally tripping in the woods.
Nope, it's a Madam Stabby stab term.
Go on.
Because you're watching.
I'm intrigued. You got me. You had me at bitches be tripping.
They're running up the stairs, down the stairs, through the woods, down the freaking fishing pier, in the middle of the street.
And every single one of them have that fishing pier, that boat dock. Every one of them.
All trip.
That's right. It hasn't been up to code in 30 years, but people still go on it.
And every time they're running.
Now you forget the part where they're also bouncing as they run. If you know, you know.
Jiggling. I call them the jiggle queens.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Or the scream queens, right? Because they always scream.
We're talking about titties, folks. Titty.
We were trying to stay family friendly.
T-I-E-T-I-E-S.
I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
So for me, that's
don't blame me.
I would have called the scream. Nick, come on. I would call it the scream queen is the trope for me when you got the girl that's always just screaming. And sometimes you're just wishing she dies so the screaming freaking stops. I'm like I really want the killer to get stopped, but can you just take off her first so we get a little bit of silence in the theater?
Yeah, that is a trope.
We just watched one the other day.
Night of the Demons.
No.
Are you sure? Because that's the one you've been complaining about for the last 72 hours.
No. I actually posted about it because I don't typically jump in scary movies. Like any scary movies, I don't jump. And we were watching a movie the other night and it just got released. And every couple minutes I was just like, oh shit, I didn't see that.
Is that the elevator game?
I want to say it was the Boogeyman.
Oh yeah, the Boogeyman. Yeah.
Boogeyman.
Jesus Christ, you were jumping like a jack-in-the-box in that one.
That shit had me
So, yeah, jump scares generally, I don't know, the music kind of foreshadows it. I can't think of it caught me off guard. But all right, so I would think for me the trope is the I don't know if when it became a horror thing, but the idea that the black guy's never gonna make it out. You see that in a lot of movies. I don't know if that became a thing because I've only seen a lot of slashers are mostly as spoofs, and so they were actually making a joke, or if that was really a thing. I am not this isn't my normal genre. I'm stretching myself.
It was a thing. It was a thing, and that's why you get parodies of it in modern film.
Okay, what about you, Sean? What is the trope you think is in the good slasher flicks?
In the good slasher flicks, the trope that is probably one of the best is everybody before or during, the things are going on. There's always that guy or that girl and guy that are just, hey, it's kind of calmed down. Let's go over here. Let's get it on. And next thing you know, both of them are missing their hearts.
Yeah, and they don't even let them finish, which makes it even cooler.
Oh, come on, man! Let them, let them, do what they do, and then, then have the guy come in and, whatever, stab them but it's always that, or it's the entire group's together and something happens to one of them, like right in front of everybody, and it's like blood everywhere, and all the guys are covered in blood and gore and stuff as this person's taken out and they're dismembered right in front of them, and they're like, oh my god,
the freak out trope.
So for me, it's very obvious that the players in the movie have never gamed with James M. Ward because you never split the party and they always go their own ways, so they can be hunted down one by one.
Yeah, but, I hate that one.
Yeah, they obviously don't understand small unit tactics either. But speaking of tactics, I realize we're an hour in and I haven't spoken about our sponsor. So, oops.
You got to shill for the man, dude.
Shill for the man. And I heard this boss was a real jerk. He hired you for a book cover. He was a real ass, I'm told. But
he's a real a-hole.
A-hole.
The government underestimated the outbreak. The best medicines couldn't stop it. Now, the dead are walking the streets, and they're hungry. Zombie Patient Zero is 9 tales of flesh-ripping, brain-splattering mayhem from Bayonet Books, the boldest name in action and horror anthologies. From deep space to luxury resorts, nowhere is safe. Zip up your hazmat suit and dare to find out how it all went wrong. Zombie Patient Zero from the deranged minds that brought you Contact This and Storming Area 51. Pick up your copy today in paperback or Kindle.
Speaking of deranged minds, I understand, Nick, you've got a zombie story in there with me. We co-wrote that one together.
I do, and I thought we did a really good job with a different angle of infection.
I think so. There's definitely room to come back. We're definitely keeping an eye towards potential expanding that into your comic book world for a setting.
I think that would be so damn fun to draw.
Yeah. So the problem is your day job kind of
wrote. Yeah.
Your day job wants you to show up and like guard the border and stuff.
Well, the more they support these books, the less I need the day job, and I can just do this full time.
There you go. And then you can start hiring people. Like those poor college students, they just need a job. Like, okay, draw me a stick figure. All right, I'll give you 50 cents.
And I'll pay them pennies under the dollar, like a sweatshop. And
so
I'll just
Maddie, can you draw stick figures? Are we going to be able to hire you for this?
Oh, she paints majestic mosaics. I can't afford her.
Okay, she's too rich for your boat. All right. So we were talking about the common tropes. Do you think there are any common character archetypes that belong in slasher? I've kind of got the opinion that part of what makes them so good is they've got a little bit of everybody as far as the characters that are involved. I haven't noticed a pattern.
They've actually got a guide in a lot of the movie making where it basically tells you what you need for a good murder story.
Sean, I've seen a pinwheel.
Yes.
You spin it. And
literally. And okay, you're going to be this person. You're going to be that person. You're going to be this person. And then they just write the script as they go along. Yeah.
Me and Maddie were actually talking about this about a week ago. And Scream kind of breaks it all down for you. They give you the rules. The to-dos, the not to-dos, and the people behind it. You have the cheerleader type, you have the emo type, you have the couple, you have the virgin, and Scream really took
the drunk abusive father.
Here's the rules. Where do you fit?
Well, basically, Stabby says, JR knows nothing. Ignore everything he just said.
Yeah, listen to Maddie.
I think Scream really, really breaks everything down a lot, especially when it comes down to the script. That's why it's kind of come a little more easy to me, because I mean, it breaks everything down. It's very obvious, and it really just shows what's needed, what's in everything, where it goes, where it belongs. It's really good example.
Don't have sex, don't do drugs, don't drink, and never say, I'll be right back.
What about the parody of Scream called Scary Movie?
So you got a parody of the parody.
That's the one I've seen. I got it mixed up.
But that one, the Scary Movie, I think shows, it basically purposely shows every trope that's in a horror story.
Yeah.
Including this weird thing where all this stuff is going on, all this stuff has happened, and they need to get evidence, but it's like the father comes by, he cleans up the phone, hangs it up, he puts things away, he does all this other days, and the father's going, what in the hell is he doing? And you realize, oh yeah, this is a parody. It's like, we need evidence, but he cleans up all the evidence.
And here's what I observed. I'm sorry, JR, go ahead.
Or the gun, the knife, the hatchet, or whatever, and the person chooses the paperclip.
So I think I said Scream earlier was the one I watched. He just corrected it, and I realized I'd actually been watching Scary Movie, the spoofs, and that's when I said spoofs.
Movie,
I don't think I've actually seen Scream, and we might have to fix that for
Oh
Halloween.
my Lord, JR!
Oh my gosh!
Just a warning, by the way. Scary Movie and Scary Movie 2. It is not meant for those under the age of 18.
No.
Or
there's
not at all.
very explicit.
It's very
adult humor.
I did like that. Like,
weird.
When the chick, the Scream Queen, tripped, they all looked at her and went, "What did you trip
What are you
on?"
tripping over? And Jason's over here being like, "Bitches be tripping, yo." Here's what I just want to touch on the Scream franchise and how it kind of revolutionized horror, especially slasher flicks. It was so self-aware. It was the beginning of self-aware horror, and that's what I call it. There's probably a more better term, more specific term for it. And it even plays into the parodies, where the parodies are just as laughable as what they're parodying, with the self-aware horror. It's like you had Jamie Kennedy who's like, "Oh, you don't know about the rules? There's the rules." And he just chimed on for three movies where I was like, I like him as an actor, but can he die already? You annoying person.
He died in the second one.
Did he die in the second one?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, he died in the second one.
Too many.
I
wish they would have left
one,
him
but
to
it
the
was on
third movie and let him
VHS.
die so I could enjoy it a little bit more.
You die,
But
you
no, they
watery
killed- they
bag
killed
of
Dewey
flesh.
later.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
so it was weird because it was this weird time of cinema, and I'll call it cinema. It's a fine film, but where you have this mainstream movie that's making fun of itself, and it's completely self-aware of the tropes that are introduced decades prior, and then you have a spoof, which is just as believable as what they're spoofing. And I've never seen that before in cinema in my entire life. Granted, I've only been on this planet 45 years, but I've seen a lot of shit, because I have a lot of time on my hands. So I just thought it was amazing that people would bring up, like JR did, like he'd seen Scary Movie, or he'd seen parts of Scary Movie, and he related it to the Scream franchise, where the two are interchangeable. And that I don't think that's ever been done before. Where the spoof was just as believable as the film that they were spoofing. And it's really enjoyable to watch. And even
the closest I've seen is the Star Trek and the Galaxy Quest.
that is Galaxy Quest needs 10 sequels. That was such a great movie. Even though
it was
Star
very
Trek.
well done. It's
Yeah.
very well acted and very well done.
I thought it was great. I'm a huge fan. I think my next cosplay is going to be a Galaxy Quest cosplay. And then I'm going to flip off Trekkies. It's going to be awesome.
I better not be.
I don't know if I want to do a cosplay. I like the uniforms from the Forbidden Planet, but I don't know that I've got the figure for the spandex. Not since I left the army.
It was a mixed blend, polyester cotton. You'll be fine.
So
I can sew that for you.
Okay, so you're a seamstress.
Hey, my wife can embroider it for you too.
There you go.
I think when it comes to horror movies in general, you have to have that adrenaline dump. But when it comes to slashers, it's a mixture of the adrenaline dump, the calm, a little bit of I feel for them. And then the last
I don't feel for them. I hope they all die.
And the relief that, they finally made it. No.
I think and I've told this story to Nick several times.
Near misses. That's the other thing. The near misses where the person's about to get killed, but for whatever reason,
just don't.
It just didn't happen. And I'm left disappointed, damn it.
So
I want to see the color of that man's
I
liver.
went to see The Hills Have Eyes, the remake, in theater with all my girlfriends. We got off work. We went to see it. Packed theater. We're in the front row. So we're watching.
Where does it take place?
In Nevada.
The Hills of Eyes?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
In Nevada. It takes place in Nevada, just outside of Nevada, or outside of Las Vegas, in between Amagrosa and Moapa, right by the test site.
Yep.
Just saying. But there was no intro to the movie at all. At all. So we're sitting there, we're watching all the previews, and I love the previews because I love knowing what's coming out and what to look forward to. So I'm sitting there watching it, and all of a sudden this guy is hiking a mountain, and then bam, axe in the head. And I'm like, I jumped so bad that I threw my nachos, and they landed on the guy behind me.
Oops.
So I'm over the seat, cleaning him up. It looks totally inappropriate. The guy's like, stop touching me. I'm like, I'm so sorry. He's like, you're fine. He got up to go clean himself. He brought me nachos. Like, I'm the one that threw them. You didn't have to bring me new nachos. I felt so bad. But before he got up to walk away, I looked back at my girlfriends with my butt in the air and my face over the seat. And I'm like, girls, I don't know what movie that is, but we need to see it. And he looks at me and he goes, that's The Hills Have Eyes. You're watching the movie right now. Well, not right now because you're backwards in your seat. And I'm like, already the best money I've spent. And it was just that opening scene with, you know, before you get any of the actors' names, the intro, there was nothing. It was just this guy hiking, and then he got axed in the head. It's perfect.
So when you do your scripts, because I've never actually talked to anybody that's writing a script before. So when you're writing your horror script, do you how do you act it out in your head? Do you go practice with your siblings or your roommates or whatever? How do you practice? Because a lot of movies fail what I call the Barbie test, which means generally speaking, they have the human body bending and moving in ways that just don't work. You see that especially in some romance novels. If you know, you know. You really have to detach your leg and move it. It just things don't work that way. I see that in horror novels too, where I'm like, if that guy was really fighting that way, he's ripped his own arm off a few times. So, How do you handle that when you're writing your script? Do you lean into the farcical nature of it, or do you try to get it realistic?
Hand wave him.
Hand wave him.
No, you, Maddie.
Yeah, you gotta unmute yourself there, girl.
Okay, Boomer.
There we go. Okay, Boomer.
She's muted again.
You literally just unmuted yourself. Come on.
It said it kept saying I was unmuted, but I don't know what's happening. It's probably the connection issue again.
Gotta give it 2 seconds.
Honestly,
pack.
I try to keep it kind of realistic, kind of not realistic, kind of in the middle to where it'd make a good script. It end up, hopefully, if I can make it into a movie, actually make it look, good, believable, real. But I don't want to make it so fake to the point where people are like, that doesn't look real. That doesn't look real at all.
Right. Matt, let me ask you a quick question. Would you rather be behind the camera or just writing the script? Do you want to direct at some point?
I'd like to do a lot of the screenwriting. I would like to do a little directing, but I'm kind of more on the screenwriting side, the script.
Or maybe just a cinematographer, the actual eyepiece of the director who has a lot of input in how things are shot. A lot of people don't know that.
I'm actually a little into cinematography right now. I'm trying to also kind of get into that a little bit, but it's just a lot right now with the whole script writing, and it's just a lot. I'm trying to mainly focus on script writing and kind of do cinematography on the side.
Now, word on the street is you also draw. You ever think about doing comic books and being the cinematographer, director?
Don't fall for it. He's trying to draw you into it. Don't fall for it.
I've already fallen for it once.
Oh no.
I've actually been kind of working on my drawings a little bit. I have a lot of things to show you, but just been so busy, so caught up.
If anybody is going to be able to describe exactly how somebody trips going up the stairs, it's going to be Maddie.
Well,
she would leave her shoes on the stairs so Abby can trip over him.
You're in luck, Maddie Stabby. Your Uncle Nick's here for you. He's going to teach you everything you need to know, kid. Stick with him. See this? My wing. You're under it.
All right. So
Just pray he's had a good shot of right guard.
yeah.
Or left guard, because that was my left wing.
True story that most people don't realize this, but when he was with the with the Raider,
Marines, what? Why would you say something so controversial?
Because the Marines have been on my mind because they lost the plane this week, right?
Oh my God! How do you lose an $80 billion plane?
It's in stealth
It
mode.
wasn't
It's
an
not
$80
autopilot.
billion.
Yeah, so the jokes write themselves, and all of the service, even the Space Force
They found
and the
it, by
Coast
the
Guard,
way.
now get to mock the U.S. Marine Corps.
Sean has just updated us, sir, that they have found that plane. Probably a bunch of Marines walking through the woods with a key fob to the F-35. I hear it.
They walk right by it, but they can't see it because it's in stealth mode. But yeah, so like the secret was that when you were actually behind the trigger, it wasn't actually your bullets that were killing them. You would just rub the bullets under your armpit and then shoot by them, and then they'd kill themselves because they just didn't want to smell something so foul like that again. True story. I'm sorry, Stabby. You have to hear that horrible thing about your husband. Well, you've probably lived with it, so you know.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, that's pretty loud.
I just want you to know, dear listener, that joke landed better in my head, all right?
Yeah, I
And
had
it will
one of
help
those
to
earlier.
say-
What the hell is with this
Landed on
crowd?
fluffy pillows.
Well, I didn't realize you were muted, so I was talking, but
So-
then I realized we were both muted. So that's a thing.
Okay, but so here, go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes he sneaks, sometimes he doesn't, but it does not compare to our dog Domino. He could clear a building. He could
Okay,
clear a building.
so we've talked about slasher as a film genre. Do you think it could work as like a game or in comics or in any other visual or written medium? Words, Nick. People are not always watching. Some of them are listening.
Maddie, speak up before Uncle Nick takes over.
Honestly, I've seen, because I have a couple comics where they try to throw in a little horror slasher kind of thing in there. I think it could work if whoever's writing the comics tried hard enough. I don't know. I haven't seen it personally, so it's just something I'm waiting to see, I guess. I think it could work out, though.
Okay.
Y'all ready?
All right. Lay it
Y'all
on.
ready? We already have a myriad of video games that portray the slasher genre. We have Dead by Daylight. We have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We have Friday the 13th. We have some other ones going on right now in development. So, the medium
7
is...
Days to Die.
7 Days to Die. Oh, thank you very much. So, we got a multitude of video game genre. Also in the comic books, you have Ash versus the Evil Dead. You have Ash versus Freddy versus Jason versus the Evil Dead. You have Ash versus Ash. Two different properties. Ash versus Hellraiser. So, like,
Ash
if
wins
you get
the day.
the most creative minds involved, yeah, you can cross-platform, you can cross-medium, so easy. I just played the Texas Chainsaw video game, made me want to hit a small puppy with a hammer because I never got to be Leatherface. I was always the victim, and I start off in his little farm, his little garage, his little barn, and I have to escape. And every little move I make just sends a signal to them, and they chase me down and cut me up. When I was playing Dead by Daylight's very similar, and that's probably the original.
That's what happens in Dead by Daylight. That's
the original game. That's pretty much the game that set off all these other games like Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, and Dead by Daylight had mods too, so you could have Michael Myers, you could have Jason, you could have Freddy Krueger, you could have all this. I think there's one with Pinhead from the Hellraiser series. They're great games. They're frustrating as hell, but they're great games. They're fun as hell when you get to play the bad guy. When you get to play the villain, when you get to play, and I've always, in the slashers, I always consider the slasher as the protagonist, not the antagonist. You know, because I want to see all these spoiled little
I think the
kids
original
die.
zombie game or zombie-fied, alien-fied game is probably Half-Life. I think
Half-Life,
that
yeah.
game is the king of all the other games, and then it spawned Counter-Strike via Valve Software developed Counter-Strike, which is probably one of the most popular games ever. Turned into Counter-Strike 2, turned into Counter-Strike CS:GO. Now it's Counter-Strike 2.
It's the granddaddy to Call of Duty. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah. There's no
modern
doubt
stuff.
about it. Yeah. There is the type of movie, the monster movies that I think are also part of the horror movies. My first one that I saw was on TV, but it was called The Blob.
The Blob's what, the 50s version?
50s version, the original 50s version. Probably one of the best made ones ever, because I mean, here you see this thing. It's not very big, but it goes up to the fly and it captures the fly. How they did that, I'm not sure, but it looks like this just gooey, tappy type material, and people touch it and then they die. The thing would just grow and you get
because it just absorbs all the organic material. I think the remake probably illustrated that further. Where it grabbed onto a dude and his arms were outside of the blob material. And I think it was his girlfriend. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm going to help you." And it's like the blob straight just dissolving his organic material.
Yeah.
And she
pops off his arms.
In her hands. You know, they're all flopping around and you just see him just like slowly go from like flesh human to like he's a skull, and then his skull's gone, but his eyeballs are still there. Weird. Oh my God. I love that picture so much. It's probably one of my favorite Jason movies. We could do another hour on this. Ash
versus the Evil Dead. Yep.
That's The Mummy's Ghost.
The Mummy's Ghost.
Watched that 2 days ago.
The Mummy was good. Dracula's daughter.
This is all. These can all be seen on Peacock, on the Peacock streaming service. Just to let everybody know, Peacock, you owe me $25.
This is what all of them. Holy cow!
Yeah, we got Mike
Jason,
again. Leatherface, Jason, Freddy.
Yeah, wow, yeah.
So I just went through because I have to use fair use doctrine because we don't want to get copyright strikes. So I'm limited to some of the graphics that are in there, but we got some of the classics as Clay. I don't know. I can see a wax house being the perfect setting for a horror movie because they're already creepy.
Oh yeah,
it's that uncanny valley. So, do you think so? Go ahead.
Well, the Waxing Museum is a good example. That'd be perfect. I mean, you have Vincent Price and beautiful. Then what's that other one? Puppet Master. The movie Puppet Master.
That's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Excellent movie. Excellent. If you ever get a chance to see that movie, see it. It is beautiful.
They're so
very well made.
Yeah, they're well made and they're funny.
Yes.
And I think it's probably one of the things I like about it. I like horror comedy, especially if it's linked to the horror genre or the slasher genre or subgenre. I think those are probably some of the most well written, because I think comedy and horror are very
Vampire in Brooklyn.
As writing.
With Eddie Murphy, Vampire in Brooklyn.
So gory. It was not what I was expecting when I saw that movie.
No, it was very gory, but it was very well made. They knew what they were doing when they made that movie. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I have to agree with you.
Can you tell, is that a Ginsu or is that a Shun knife? I can't tell.
And those movies always like to, they're very self-aware. They pick fun at themselves. And the genre. It's like, like if the vampire could just walk around, you're like, wait, don't you need my permission? He's like, man, this ain't no damn movie. So trying to film a crime.
She's about to commit a crime.
So
mine's fancier.
Yeah.
He's fine.
So Nick, that question you and Stabby asked in the side chat that we were supposed to get to. Why don't you ask that one? See if we get this discussion going deeper.
Oh, about location?
Yes.
Do you think? I'll just ask the question, and everyone can just kind of round robin in. Utilize my position as co-host. Do you think location is pivotal in a slasher movie?
Maddie.
And I'm going mute.
campground,
You said location?
abandoned village or city or town, out in the middle of nowhere.
So you think isolation is key?
Isolation, I think.
What about you, Maddie?
I think kind of more like isolation or like small town, you know. I don't think like a big city would really work, you know. So like small, closed in, like there's really nowhere to go, nothing to do. So
do they ever?
Maddie, I'm going to pick your creative brain here.
You're
do you
muted,
think you
Nick.
could make it work in a big city if you created that isolation, like the Purge?
Yeah, because for instance, the new Scream movie and like you said, The Purge, I think those movies kind of worked. Me personally, I wasn't a big fan of the new Scream movie because of. Okay, I liked it. Don't get me wrong, I liked it. I just didn't like the killers and their reason to be the killers. But I think they did a pretty good job of trying to make it work in the big city because, I mean, you had the points where there's a lot of people, like you have a lot of people nearby, maybe they can help you out. But then again, there's a lot of people who anybody can be this killer trying to attack you. So I think it just kind of depends on how the person or the writer goes on it themselves.
But if you want to talk location with a big city but a small town feel, and to keep you on topic with what you were just talking about, Scream 3. They're in Hollywood. They're on a movie set. They're in the Beverly Hills, and they make it feel like a small town, but they're in LA.
Yeah. I wasn't really the biggest fan of Scream 3, so I don't go out of my way to do a lot of research on that. I thought it was really boring, honestly.
What about Jason in Manhattan?
Ooh.
I liked that.
Interesting point.
I know a lot of people don't like Jason in Manhattan, but I like it. I like
one of my top 5 Jason movies. I
like pretty much all of the Jason movies.
May I remind you, Jason X.
Space. But that definitely gives you a small space feel because they're all trapped on the spaceship.
Yeah.
So you definitely have that confinement.
Yeah.
Maddie, would you think that Jason X, you've seen Jason X, right?
I've seen most of it, yeah.
And you've seen Alien or Aliens?
Yeah.
You think like that merger creates the isolation?
I do. I think once you're that far in space, you're far enough where nobody can help you right away, where you're confined to a spaceship. There's nowhere to really run if you think about it. I think that type of isolation is scarier than being in a small town.
What do you think?
Yeah.
I
was going to say pretty much the same thing. I think
verbatim.
That just adds kind of...
Well,
I think it adds like a newer level of like being scared, you know, rather more than just like, oh, what's going to happen. It adds more to it, honestly. I think it's better.
No, I agree with
than
you.
being
I
isolated in like a small town.
You know you can kill the alien.
Yep.
You don't know how to kill Jason, and now he's in space.
And you can't call 911.
Yeah, be destroyed.
Well, you can always put on, spacesuits and then just open up all the valves and just vent everything into space.
See, that's what I would do, Sean. Like, wrap my arm around.
Yeah, because somehow, some way, Jason, in 3 to 5 minutes, Jason wouldn't be able to breathe. Don't care if he's supernatural or not. He'd have to come out from somewhere, or you say, okay, I'm going to take you with me, and you burn yourself up in the atmosphere. I'm sorry, 5,000 degrees Celsius. Jason, you're crispy crittered, and you're done.
What I like about that, Sean, is that it no longer is my problem.
Well, even
Yep.
Well,
whatever outcome after I shoot him out of space lock, it's not my problem.
Even if we're going to circle back even if we're going to circle back, in Scream 2, they're at a major university. They're in college.
Yeah.
So I think it's giving you that small town feel, that confinement feel, even if you're in a large space. I do think that is a big part of it.
Yeah.
So we will remind you, dear listener, if you've got opinions on this, feel free to comment in the comment section on the podcast, on the YouTube disc, YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, maybe Odyssey will be finally working by then, and on the Facebook group. So our link tree will have all of that. We'll give you the link at the end of the show, but feel free to join the discussion because there's definitely room for everyone to say. What's going on. And if we get enough comments, we might revisit it and just read some of those comments and make that an episode.
Even in Psycho, you have the really big house. It's 3 stories, attic, second story, first story, technically 4 because there's a basement. It's a pretty big house. The motel is decently sized, but it's just a little bit off the beaten track. Not too much because he walks to the diner.
Yeah, it's still isolation.
It's off the beaten track, but it's on a major highway. So they really talk about that. And
I think you're introducing a new trope.
But it gives you that small town.
Discussed.
It gives you that small town feel.
Well, think about it. Some of the horror films that have been some of the like alien horror films, like Aliens. You go on to the Alien movie, the Nostromo. If you've ever actually taken a look at the Nostromo as a ship overall, it's not the ship itself. It's basically a giant space tug. It's not that big. It's not that big of a ship. But you have all the ductwork, you have all the engineering spaces, the other places where airflow goes and water goes, etc., to operate the ship, and everybody gets killed in different places by the alien. And it's insane. Now, what I don't like is the fact that you had these people, they get this thing to go down to the planet, and they're trying to check things out, and it's like, wait a second, okay, here's these things all over the floor. We don't know what they are, but we see this alien guy there with the thing like chest is exploded, and my first thing would be like, yeah, nuke it from orbit just to be sure. That would be my response, period. Because I mean, I've seen enough horror films before this point. Yeah, nuke it from orbit.
So here's a quick question, and we can round robin it real quick. I'll go on mute as soon as I ask. But what do you guys think makes a slasher so scary?
I think the idea that, I mean, it's really kind of impersonal to shoot someone from a distance. I mean, very few people are looking at a high-powered scope enough that you can, tell how much change is in their pocket and what denomination the coins are. Most people, when you're shooting things, there's enough of a distance that it's not as personal. When you're stabbing someone, you're like, what's that famous quote from Bunker Hill? Wait till you can see the whites of their eyes. Like, there's something to be said for getting that close. It makes it more visceral, and I think that's what makes it scarier.
I think that's a very good point, JR. I think it's the invasion of personal space. As we progress as a society, we're not really comfortable with people being in what we call the bubble. So it's an invasion of personal space, the isolation, and the potential that whatever is hunting you or killing your friends could possibly be one of your own. So it adds a distrust factor. So you feel like a man on an island, So you have that saying, no man is an island. Well, in those horror movies, distrust starts, going rampant like a disease, like something viral. So they distrust everybody. There's an invasion of personal space. There's a sense of isolation, like, who's going to help me? And it's, like, no one's going to help you. You're on your own. You got to face this crazy psychopath that wants to do you harm in probably the most painful way possible. So I think those couple of things is what makes the slasher makes it personal, and it makes it so horrific, and it makes it so scary. Is that it's going to be in your face, like you said.
What about you, Maddie and Sean?
Honestly, I think the same thing, the invasion of personal space, the isolation, and personally, I would say the suspense, because if you really get the suspense going and building up so much, it kind of gets you thinking, and if the suspense in the movie builds up towards the character, I think it really gets the character thinking and kind of adds a bit more story and like interesting things about the character. So it really gets you thinking, gets the character thinking, and it just adds up to a lot.
And Sean, you got any thoughts?
Yes, the most important thing in any slasher film, in fact, pretty much any horror film, timing. Just flat out timing. I mean, if you have somebody, they walk up to their door, they open the door, and then all of a sudden, and they're all of a sudden dead. That's okay. Yeah. Oh, jump factor. But what the heck? Well, there's no ifs, no ands, no ways, no what. Where are they at? What are they doing? Who's this person? It could be timing. Now, depending upon the film, like you talked about, all of a sudden this guy is walking along in the desert, and all of a sudden this hatchet, axe, or whatever comes out of nowhere, and he's dead. Then it starts the film. That's a great intro into, okay, how did this happen? And you're invited. But
Hills
to me,
Have
it's
Eyes.
always timing. Exactly. It's always timing. I mean, if in the film Psycho, the woman had gotten done with a shower as they had wanted to for her to step out and then she'd be murdered. No, they changed it. And from what I read and from what I've seen and heard, they changed it and said, okay, she's the curtain's going to open up and she's going to be stabbed, and then she pulls the curtain down, and it's like clink, 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 and you see the blood going down the drain, or the dark stuff that they use for blood going down the drain because it's black and white. Perfect timing. When they made it the most classic ever scenes in all of horror movies anywhere, probably in all cinema, because nobody can forget that scene ever. If you ever seen it, if you ever heard about it, nobody can forget that scene ever, because it was good timing. The birds, same thing, timing.
I think all of you guys have great points, and they all make perfect sense. Mine might not make as much sense. The music.
Yes.
Because I've noticed I'm not as scared of certain scenes if I mute the TV.
Exactly.
If I don't hear that music, I'm not scared of what's about to happen. It's that build of the music.
Ba-bum.
It's exactly
Bum, bum, bum,
Jaws.
3 notes and you have a
Three
villain.
notes and you have a villain.
Ba-bum. Exactly.
And same thing with Halloween. You hear that theme song and you're like,
Ding, 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 ding. Yes.
In,
You're like, okay, yeah.
In Friday the 13th, you have the, and it's always that, it's the score. It's the score. And I think the music gives you that last aspect that brings
branding
you
identity.
into it. And you're so immersed in the dark, in the seeing what the killer is doing, seeing what the person is doing, wanting the person to run. But the music is telling you a whole different story. And I don't think we could have slashers or even just horror movies without that, without the scores. Because you said it yourself with the Psycho one, you get that, and everybody knows that sound as Psycho. So I
Even
think,
if they don't know what the sound is from, they recognize it on some almost instinctual level because it's entered the cultural zeitgeist. I didn't know that's what the movie that was from, but everyone's seen the mocking of it, in tertiary levels throughout the progression of film. So let me ask you this, because I'm a practical guy and I've seen the jokes about Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings ends a little bit differently if you equip the protagonist with a pistol, right? Or insert firearm of choice.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty much every movie that requires a
the
magical sword.
Eagles. Can we just travel over here and drop the thing into the throat of the Mount Doom? In the movie, done.
How do they end film in a world that they're filming these where modern firearms existed? Because I don't think I've ever seen a slasher film from like pre-gunpowder as a setting. Not saying they don't exist, and if you know of any, comment to us because I'd be interested in watching. But how do they justify the fact that nobody has a gun to just end it?
They always go for the gun, but the gun somehow escapes their grasp. I'm like, well, and then you got movies like the Nightmare on Elm Street series, where a gun's not going to help you at all. Nope. Because it has no effect in the dream world.
They tried the D&D approach on that one and didn't quite work.
Yeah, I am Eric, the wizard master. Demon be gone, and then he just sticks 4 freaking knives in his guts.
But
cool scene though.
They used a gun on. They used a gun on.
Well, yeah, Loomis shot him like he emptied the whole roll, all 6 rounds.
Roll. He shot him until he fell out the window.
You've got to stop the evil. You've got to stop the evil.
And it did nothing.
Oh yeah, let's go ahead and just hit him in the chest. Hello, Mozambique here. Have you ever practiced Mozambique? To the chest, yes. One to the head, or to the head, one to the chest. Either way.
Well,
you get any Kiwat vet?
If the brains aren't there, the body doesn't work.
Yeah, pretty much. Simple science.
Yeah, that's what the Mozambique drill would definitely end a lot of threats. To the chest, face gets the rest was how they taught us to remember it.
They smacked Michael Myers with an iron in Halloween Kills. An iron.
And he dies tonight. And he got schooled.
So speaking of the bad guy, do you think the motivation for the bad guy matters, or is he more just the foil that the characters throw themselves against, metaphorically?
I think it does matter.
I think it does.
I think the more reason or motivation you give to the killer, I think the less scary it becomes.
I think the backstory kind of ruins it for people. Why is this person trying to kill us? Doesn't matter. He's trying to kill you.
I think that's why Michael Myers was so terrifying. Is because he just picked out somebody that knocked on his door, and just like, yep, that's the one. That's the one I'm going to torment tonight. There was no rhyme or reason to it. It's like predatory. It's animal kingdom stuff. It's a lion out in the jungle. I have this need that needs to be fulfilled. You just happen to be there. Movies like The Strangers, if you've ever seen that, or the sequel, their motivation is completely arbitrary. She even asked in the first one, she's like, why are you doing to this? She's like, because you were home. And I think that makes it more terrifying that there's people in the world or something like that exists out in the world, outside of cinema, outside of film, outside of the nonfiction area.
I think one of the movies where
they're motivated by the fact that you're just there.
Yeah. I think one of the movies where that works is I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, those are scary.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Was that
right
was
there,
the one?
I Know What You Did Last Summer. That movie was, you didn't know where it was coming from. You just didn't know. And it was like, wow. I thought that movie took a lot of people who were used to horror movies out of their comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a game changer. It changed the genre along with Scream, and that's what I liked. Like Scream started the neo horror, and then we get I Know What You Did Last Summer, which added to the new rules for neo horror. It's just, and it's been stacking on each other, and then
There was a
getting parodied by itself.
There was a one. Thanks for Stabby for telling me. The Final Destination is a good example where that logging truck, because no one ever thinks we're gonna kill you randomly with a giant piece of wood while you're driving down the highway. You think once you're in the car and you're getting away, you're safe. And then the news horror is like, I'm going to see what makes you feel safe, and I'm going to yank that away from you. And that
whole generation.
I get out of the way when a logging truck comes by. I still pull off and I'm sure the truck driver love that shit. But
logging truck carrying any type of cylindrical thing on the back that's long and heavy. Like no,
that's what she said.
Yep, I'm pulling off to the side. I'm gonna let him pass.
Yeah,
give them room to turn. Give
you a wide berth, sir. You do you.
What was that one movie? It was there was a guy. It was like 1970s. He was driving along. He was at a gas station, and he filled up his car and got some coffee or a drink or something. Got in the car and took off. And he was followed by a diesel truck. You never saw the guy in the truck, but he tried. No, he tried. It was 1970s, and he tried to keep running this guy off the road. Keeps chasing down. The guy has an old car, and the car keeps like overheating, and he tries to, and he gets up to the top of the hills, like, and then finally makes it over the hill and goes down the hill and lets it idle while going down the hill, and it cools off, and it starts back up again. Then the chase is on again. That was for its day, probably one of those most terrifying things ever, because
what was it called?
Duel, yes, because the truck, because he tried to get help from people and the truck would kill him.
Mm-hmm.
It's directed by Steven Spielberg.
Yep,
that's a Spielberg movie.
Yep,
1971.
No kidding, pre-Jaws.
1971. Yep.
Dennis Weaver.
Well, and it also brings you to like Maximum Overdrive. That was another scary one, a Stephen King novel or novella.
Yep.
But then that just brings up that circle.
So now we have to like
Joyride.
Well, in Joyride, we have to discuss: does the slash axe? Does he need to be human?
I don't think so. Because see, here's my thing:
does he need to be a man or a woman?
If we're gonna discuss, does their background matter? Right. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah.
You have Michael Myers, who they say was just born evil. You have Jason Voorhees, who was disfigured, died in the water because people weren't paying attention, and then he came back to life because his mom died.
Or he wasn't dead to begin with.
Yeah. And then you have Freddy, who they don't ever say it until
the third movie.
The remake. They don't say it until the remake, but they insinuate what he did to kids.
Yeah, he was just a child killer. Like,
and then when they did the remake, they really they dug deep into his background, and his background was a little bit more than just killing.
A little darker.
Well, I think it focused. I think the third movie actually covered a lot of it. It was when he was trying to. He was trying to tell him not to, hurt him, but they basically had all the parents of all the children that had been killed. They trapped him in this industrial place, and they lit the place on fire, and he literally burned to death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
but they never quote unquote found the body.
Right.
They don't talk about the fact that they found the body until
they just found his glove.
Right. But then they talk about it in
Freddy's dead.
Oh.
What do you mean, no? You're going to argue with me, the aficionado is Nightmare on Elm Street?
But I thought it was the one with the kids in the asylum.
It's Freddy's dead.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I've got my movies.
Well, and then there was Freddy vs. Jason, where they kind of extended a little bit more, but they never found his body. It burned.
So that brings you
series.
Yeah.
So Nick, what you guys are talking about is the way the obscenity code laws changed over time. It allowed movie producers to do different things than they used to. that meant that you saw more of the graphic horror and less of the psychological horror because you had to show it, which meant you could rely on props and special effects instead of dramatic acting. I think to some degree, as a larger rule of film, it's been to the detriment of acting capabilities. Having said that, specifically with slasher films and horror in general, do you feel like films have gotten better since they could show more of the violence, or was it better in like the Hitchcockian era where it was like just total fear factor and it was dramatic?
I don't know, man. I've been called a boomer so many times on Twitter, even though I'm a Gen Xer.
Well, I mean,
well, I can't. Yeah, people like to be scared.
Let's ask Maddie.
Yeah, Maddie, what do you think?
I think Maddie probably answered this the best.
What was the question? I'm sorry. I've had horrible connection. I'm not sure if you guys saw
like. What do you like? What is different from like the Hitchcockian style films to the modern slashers where they're allowed to do a lot more? The obscenity laws have changed to where they can show more gore and more things. Versus,
do you think the more input now is better, or do you like the subtlety of older films where it alludes to danger, it alludes to motivation?
It relied a lot on innuendo.
Honestly, I hate modern day horror movies and slashers.
Why? Tell us.
Because they're not as subtle as, let's say, a movie from the 80s, 70s. I like how subtle it is rather than there's so much input in the new horror films. I think it's too much. I think there's a line for a certain extent, and I feel like a lot of modern day horror kind of passes that line. And it kind of makes me a little bored because of how much input there is.
Do you think modern horror kind of holds your hand and walks you through it and tells you what you're supposed to be scared of and what you're supposed to be reacting to, as opposed to movies from the 90s, 80s, 70s, and back that way?
Yeah, I feel like it really walks you through a lot of it. It
takes some of the fun out, don't it?
Yeah, it takes a lot of the fun out. It's not as good as just like, let's say Scream, for example. You're constantly trying to guess, oh, okay, who's the killer? Like, this person's doing this, that person's doing that. It walks you through, it guides you rather than just bringing that fun and joy into it.
You think there's too much explanation of what's behind the whole plot?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think one of the coolest things that I noticed in my research, did you know that one of the biggest reasons that Psycho was so scandalous was because they showed a belly button?
Oh my God.
Oh, no. Yes.
A belly button, you say?
It showed a belly button.
Obscene because they showed a belly button.
All for 1 second, but...
Yep. That's all it took. It's a belly button.
That's the reason it was R, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, you start watching a movie, you really get into it, and you're like, wait a minute, why was this considered scandalous? Because when we watch movies like The Terrifier, you see everything.
Yeah.
You see head to toe, where they're being slit from, where they're being slit to. Everything. So I was looking into it. I was like, why did they consider Psycho so scandalous? Like, was it because she was in the shower? Was that just it?
They've never shown that before.
Belly button. It's strictly about that.
It was only for like a second, too. Yeah. It was just for a second.
Yeah. You blink, you miss it.
But it violated. They did it anyway. Hitchcock allowed it to happen, and because he was Hitchcock, it got put out there. I think he pulled a lot of weight to do that because the obscenity laws, I forgot the specific names of them, but the obscenity laws they had said you could not show a belly button. It wasn't until years later, like during the movies or TV shows, like I Dream of Jeannie and and original Star Trek and others, where they actually got to show belly buttons.
Belly buttons.
Yes.
Yeah, belly buttons.
Belly buttons. Belly buttons.
That
Is yours an innie or an outie?
So now I'm remembering that
Mine's a
show we
BMW.
used to read to the kids about Boynton Beach and the belly buttons. Elephants. Sorry. So I asked this as a kind of a joke in the side chat, but there are some things that people are inherently afraid of. Clowns being, for instance, one. Some people are just afraid of clowns. I can't think of a clown without thinking of Bozo and the pie to the face and the Otis Spunkmeyer cookies. For those of
John
you,
Wayne Gacy.
Pennywise.
So what do you think about? Do you think it makes it scarier, or is that too person in the audience specific?
I hate clowns. I'll leave it at
I
that.
was more scared of Tim
Mimes.
than the new guy.
Mimes.
Mimes.
Oh my God.
They don't talk.
There was a movie. It was a foreign film. But basically, it was all involving mimes. And the mimes were like, if you didn't tip the mimes, or you didn't pay the mimes, you suffered.
They attacked you.
No, they didn't really attack you. You suffered things that would happen to a mime, like trapped in a box, or something was hot, or wind, or something like that.
Scary as shit.
It was a foreign film. It was a short form film, but I'm like, that'd be interesting. We have the mimes. We don't talk, but we have the power to affect your life. Give me a tip or else, that type of thing.
There's too many of those in Las Vegas. We don't need to play with that.
True.
Okay. Okay. So some places would be scarier for the props than others to mess with people. So with the movies, one of the things that you see sometimes in these horror movies is you have the lone survivor who's just there at the end, covered in blood. All of their friends are dead, and the cops show up, and you got the iconic scene of them sitting in the back of the back of the ambulance with the wool iconic blanket wrapped around their shoulders. But you never hear crazy kid kills all their friends, arrested, claims the one-eyed man did it, gets sent to the asylum kind of thing.
Oh yeah,
straight to the asylum right away.
So how come we never we always just end it in media res instead of showing the aftermath? Because that could almost become its own psychological horror when you start seeing monsters behind every shadow now, because you just went through this horrific event.
I don't know. Probably because they like to clean up the craziness of a horror movie in a nice little pretty bow. I think it would be fun to see a horror movie, and I think someone like James Wan could probably pull this off. Where it starts you in the middle of the slasher, like our typical slasher movie, right towards the end, and then them having to deal with the aftermath to prove that they weren't the one that was slashing all their friends. I think that would be such a fun movie. I don't know. You could take a funny approach to it. You could take a serious approach to it. I think either way would be enjoyable.
I've had the same question and the same kind of curiosity about the superhero movies where they're destroying insert, mythical city here. And you're just seeing all this destruction. Can you imagine trying to be an insurance agent in those locations?
Oh my Lord. I wrote a comic book script about that, where depending on their power level, they had to have a certain level of insurance. And it started with a low-leveled, low-powered hero who could only afford $10K of insurance of property damage. And I'm going to revisit that because I still think that would be a fun story.
Marvel made that. Either DC or Marvel made a series about that, and the characters behind it, because this damage would happen and these people would come in and would rebuild some. It's like this one guy's hamburger joint restaurant got destroyed, but they because he had insurance, the superheroes had insurance. They came in literally with a giant helicopter in this thing and put his restaurant back down and hooked everything back up almost with instantly. Then they're this is the insurance company. Thank you very much, and that's it. They actually
there was
did
a comic book called
that.
Powers where they dealt with that. It was mostly on the law enforcement side, but they dealt with superheroes having insurance. I think another one was. They made a movie out of it. It had Ben Stiller in it. He was Mr. Angry or something like that.
You're talking about Men at Work? No,
No, it was. What was that called?
Now, Men in Black did do that kind
Mystery
of
Men. Mystery Men.
That's it. He was
Yeah,
Men in Black
they
did
were all-
kind of. Go ahead.
The superhero had like sponsorship, all in his uniform, like companies, like politicians should wear. Should never
So-
be paying for him.
Men in Black did something similar with the little gun that little flash thing pin that would make people forget it was swamp gas or whatever. Like it was an attempt to cover like how do you, if you've got this big huge secret that is a secret but it's so huge, how does it stay a secret? You kind of have to
plot hole.
You got to fill that plot hole or suspend disbelief hardcore, and sometimes that plot hole is too big to suspend that disbelief. You need to build a bridge over that chasm.
Yep,
But if we
it's called the
circle back-
neuralizer.
The neuralizer, yeah. Greatest invention ever. I wish I had one.
So if we circle back though,
I did not leave the toilet seat up.
to circle back to what you guys were asking about, like a movie with the aftermath, the cleanup, or the convincing people that you're not the actual killer. Two big franchises actually kind of touched on it. Halloween, even though Carpenter did not want number 2 to be made because he didn't want that whole brother-sister thing to happen. But if you actually watch it, like they kind of show you Laurie is having like PTSD. Nobody believed that it was Michael Myers, but now they're starting to realize it's Michael Myers, but they still can't find him. And they wind up killing the 17-year-old boy that's dressed like him with the car. Like, it's a whole thing. But then, the other franchise I was thinking about is Scream. And then number 4, the main final girl, Sydney, her cousin becomes the murderer, becomes Ghostface. And she wants to kill everybody and be the final girl. And she thinks that she killed everybody and is the final girl until she realizes that Sydney survived and so did Gail. And now she's trying to clean up the mess in the hospital. Like, it's wild. But they do show in those two the trying to prove that, like, I didn't do it. But, I mean, in the one case, she totally didn't.
I think she tried proving it in a good way, but the way that they found out that she was Ghostface was when she was in the hospital, and then she realized that Sydney and Gail were alive. She pretty much ratted herself out about her and Gail's matching scars.
Matching scars.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about you, Maddie? What do you think about some of the endings where they just leave it hanging instead of a wrap up of how do you explain all these dead bodies and you're the only one alive? Because in a real world, you're law enforcement. You're suspecting that survivor of being the murderer.
Oh yeah, the only one alive usually has the answers to my questions because everyone else is dead.
Yeah. I think usually the aftermath, like you said, when they kind of just leave the bodies there, kind of leave us hanging there, it creates more room, more space to make more movies, just kind of give the final girl more of a storyline to kind of help build her character. But me personally, I hate it when we just kind of get left on a cliffhanger and everything's just there. I hate it so much. It makes me so mad. But I do like it when they kind of wrap it up, or in the end credit scene they kind of show something saying that there's more room for another upcoming movie. I think it just kind of depends, honestly.
We all walked out of Halloween Kills very disappointed. We're like, she just left him in there?
I wanted to punch it.
Like, she just
child.
left the basement?
After that
She
movie.
should know better.
I was so mad. I'm like, I want to kick a puppy. That's how mad this movie made me, or how mad the movie made me. Yeah. Like,
so for the record, dear listener in Podcastia land and on the interwebs, he did not kick a puppy. This was metaphorical. Please do not report it.
I screamed in a pillow for about 15 minutes. Why?
Okay, so as we bring this home, because we've been going for 2 hours, I will start with you, Maddie. What do you think if you wanted somebody was going to make their own modern horror slasher movie? What do you think is a good setup? Like, what would you do to set up the perfect slasher?
Honestly, I would do anything a normal horror movie slasher would do back in the day. Kind of base it all around revenge. Not too much lore, not too much explanation. Kind of right in the middle, perfect. A little comedy in between. Kind of just. I don't really know a word for it. Just
retro,
pretty much.
You go retro, and I think you got so much ahead of you as far as modern filmmaking in that genre. I think if you went retro, it would be fresh and new.
Yeah,
it's so old it's new.
Me personally, I hate modern day horror movies unless let's say, I know this isn't a movie, but 1984 of American Horror Story. I love how they take that back to the 80s. I think they did a very great job with that season. I think just kind of taking it back, making it a little subtle, not too much going on, just kind of a lot of suspense makes it really good.
Maddie, I'm so proud of you right now.
Did you watch Fear Street?
Yes, I love Fear Street. A lot of people hate
also
on it.
Had a 1984.
Yep.
I loved it. I loved Fear Street. I love the whole storyline around it and how they took 3 separate movies to build the pretty much one whole movie on itself, the whole storyline itself. I loved it. It was amazing, and how they took you back in time. It was perfect.
Okay. What about you, Sean? If you were going to build the perfect kind of horror movie, what would you lean into? The slasher specifically.
He's muted. He was on a point too. You could tell by the video.
He's still muted.
Oh,
you were on a point, Sean. Continue.
Let me start that point again. Reach over here and just kick the choke and give it a pull. All right. If I were to make a horror film today, not really so much a slasher, but kind of one of those psychological thrillers that leads into being a slasher, I would develop someone who had a disturbed childhood, nothing based upon revenge, but a disturbed childhood. And they move into a neighborhood and they meet this best friend, and this best friend lives at this house, and it's not the best looking house, kind of run down, but they live at this house, and this friend talks them into doing things, and their friend goes and does things that they shouldn't do. They set somebody's house on fire, they cause somebody's brakes to go out. I'm just using this as an example. And after people have died and have end up dead and killed and slashed and all sorts of things, this friend laughs about it as they're holding the knife and such. And then in the end, when the police show up, there's the main character holding the knife, looking at the knife and wondering, how in the world did I get the knife into my hand? I didn't do this. Well, who did this? Well, it was my friend. And what do you mean it was your friend? It was my friend Lucy. As in Lucifer, Lucy. Yeah, he was my friend, and he did all this. And you get into the hospital at the end scene, and they asked, well, why in the world did you listen to Lucy? Why'd you do that? And the person looks up to them, with a smile, innocent as all get out, and goes, well, the devil's a nice guy.
He had candy. With candy.
The devil's a nice guy, and
I do a lot for a coffee.
That would be
I Klondike bar, but for a coffee.
But it'd be one of those psychological thrillers because even though the person was holding the knife in their hand, there'd be no fingerprints, no video, no evidence that this person actually committed the murders. All they had at the end was the knife in their hand. That's it. And there's when they get them over, there's no prints on the knife. That's the way I would lean.
Is like that.
Oh my God, yes. That was another one I was thinking about.
It's a great
one. Okay. So if
special.
I was going to do one, I like the
scanners.
Yeah.
Scanners.
I like the idea. I like the idea of the isolating setting, and I'm a history nerd, so I'd pick somewhere historic where they're isolated, and then they could call in to the cops because you got modern technology. So how do you neuter it? They're at a historic site, so when they call in the cops don't believe it, right? They call the 911 and they're like, "Quit messing around. This is like whatever. This isn't funny." And so you've got the technology, but it doesn't help them. And you've got the historic setting where you can lean into whatever kind of lore you want and justify it. I've seen some of it where it's like the avenging spirits of like Native Americans or native to whatever. I could see it working with a Viking setting, right? Like what if it's at a
based on that,
dude? Dead snow.
Yeah, somewhere historic and lean into whatever the culture in the area was.
Cursed gold.
Yeah. And then I'm just thinking like the Viking stuff at the Oak Island. If you guys watch are they ever going to find anything? Follow us for 27 seasons where we milk you along.
Exactly. But the thing is, it's not just Vikings. They've got Vikings, they've got Celtic, they've got a Roman, even
right.
Things that could be related to Romans, Native American, several different.
A lot of that relates to zombie lore, which is a show we could do.
We actually should. And then the other part of that is if you go with the person having, unearthly kind of powers, they're not human, they're either a spirit or whatever. Now you've explained why they're so good with knives, because they grew up at a time where that was how you fought. And so everyone, even, your kung fu ninja, whatever guy who thinks he's Billy Badass he can't hold a candle against someone who that was what he did every second of every day. Just a regular legionnaire.
You got stick foo, you got knife foo, you got shuriken foo. Oh, I just got stabbed in the arm. Damn it!
Hey, you've
That's
got
3 times tonight, Stabby.
You've also got the fact that way back in the day, in the 1200s to 1400s, you had everybody practicing how to use a bow from the time they were small, and every day after Sunday services at the Catholic Church, everybody would go back behind the church and or to the nearest area, and they would practice their bow, how to use a longbow and how to shoot. They had constant archery tournaments and stuff like that. That's something they were very good at. Yeah, it was a skill set. And it was a necessary skill set. They also knew how to use a knife, as well as they would have those who were good at using a sword or a pike.
It always makes me think of the guy that invented the bow and arrows. I want to stab that dude, but he's so far away. I want to stab that dude, but he's so far away.
He can stab you by remote control.
Yeah.
All right,
stuff that makes me chuckle in my private thoughts.
So Nick, if you were going to set the perfect horror movie, because we're bringing it home, we're at the 2-hour mark. Describe us if you were making a horror movie now. Tell us about it.
Okay, it's going to be mixed genre, and some of it was kind of introduced in Jason X. But I would make an isolation type environment, cabin out in the woods, maybe post-apocalyptic cityscape, but it's still in a contained, holographic chamber. So you escape that part, and you think the movie's over, and then no, because you look at the timer, and you're only 45 minutes in. You still got another 45 to 60 minutes. And boom, now it's in the spaceship orbiting a planet that's about to go boom because the sun's about to go supernova while the killer's trying to kill you and you're trying to get to your space pod. Yeah, that would be it.
And finally, last but not least, Madam Stabby.
I'd go Lizzie Borden.
Ooh, good choice.
Go on.
You don't see enough female slashers. So why not a female? that's just out here killing people because they're
I don't
in our
know,
way.
man. Like, no one's
Because
gonna believe
statistically,
it.
women are more likely to poison than stab. So,
Yeah.
although you do have, who was it? Was it Lizzie Borden that did the axe?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm gonna try and get you some hate mail. Is it because they were on their period?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said what I said. On
I don't
purpose.
care. I don't have one of those.
Oof.
Well, what if it was a trans male and
Oh,
all
'cause trans
of
women are
the
women.
and they're all
That
and
makes
they
sense.
and they get tons and tons of testosterone treatments and such.
We're
Oh.
getting too political.
Now we're
Lizzie
getting hate
Borden.
mail for
It's a plot.
sure.
It's a plot.
I'm
hole.
trying to get her
Borden.
hate mail. I got to do what I got to do.
Old school Lizzie Borden. So we have the historical setting that JR loves.
Kind of like The Cabin in the Woods.
Oh,
Yes.
I love that movie. I love that movie
It's such a
so much.
but
It's one of my favorites.
we give him some of the old school
It's a writer's nightmare. Is what it
Slasher.
is.
tropes. But when the mask comes on, it's a chick. And it can't be like some hard.
Oh, come on. You think
Hard
the chick's going to wear a mask? They want to be seen. They want to be noticed. Pick me. Pick me. Think she's going to wear a mask?
Yeah,
Well, if
she
they're
is.
psychologically woohoo,
Walk around in her with her Starbucks
All right,
cup.
so you can send all the hate mail for Nick to Madam Stabby, which will be linked in our Linktree comment or
Which
Linktree.
one?
you're an a-hole. We don't like you.
She will read it to him as she stabs him. I promise you. So now that we've kind of come full circle, Madam Stabby, you get to tell us your perfect. To tell us your favorite, your idea for a horror. If you want to expand on what you've already said, otherwise we'll wrap it up because I know we're at the 2-hour mark.
Sorry.
2 hours, 40 minutes, 45 seconds.
I was just gonna say, like, everybody anticipates it being some messed up dude. Like when the mask comes off, they're like,
That's a trope, yeah.
He's probably got a face, or it's somebody out for revenge. It's some dude.
Oh, hate plot twist for you. Pretty.
Speaking of,
He's a pretty dude. He's like Ryan Gosling pretty.
so hold on, Stabby, you just brought something up without even mentioning it. You're talking about basically inverting some of the tropes to twist on it. Have you seen the new slasher fic about Winnie the Pooh now that he is in the public domain?
Oh, Blood Honey? No, it's on my queue.
It's on the
RQ.
queue.
Sorry, love. RQ.
What about you, Stabby Jr., since you're a horror aficionado?
Maddie, did you watch Winnie the Pooh?
I've seen a lot of bits and parts of it. I didn't really care for it too much. I thought it was whatever.
Okay, what about you, Sean? Have you seen it? I saw it. I like that they're using some of the old public domain. I think it's worth it if you don't take it too seriously.
Jared saw a horror movie.
I'll try to take a look at it. I haven't seen it yet, though.
Yeah, so the other thing that it made me think is what other iconic properties have hit public domain that you could turn into a slash. I'm waiting for Steamboat Willie to go all stabby.
Funny you should mention that because this is the year that it enters public domain.
Well, they've got the Disney rule where the House of the Mouse keeps getting them to change IP law, specifically to protect Steamboat Willie, to protect or Mickey Mouse. So it'll be interesting.
Change the name and you alter the appearance 10% because that, according to law, you only need to alter it 10%.
Yeah, but then
And they
you
can
just
make it.
have Oswald,
Who?
the knockoff.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but I got to get going here. So,
all right. So
let's wrap it up, y'all.
So Sean, how can listeners and viewers find you on the Wild Interweb? As usual, we'll be linked in the show notes.
You can reach me at Sean McCune at Facebook, or you can reach me at Gun Guy on Discord, or you can thank you. You can email me at Sean McCune, or excuse me. Sorry, at hold on, I got to check it out because I changed it here a little bit ago. God, hold on.
We still love Gun Guy.
Yes, I know. Thank you for loving me. You can reach me at author Sean McCune at gmail.com.
Outstanding. And what about you, Stabby Jr., Maddie? I understand you have a page where you're starting to get into your screenwriting ideas. So can you tell people how to find that?
Yeah, you can reach me at Maddie_MMV on Instagram.
Okay. Murder, mayhem, and violence. Is that what the MMV is for?
No, honestly, I made that username a long while ago because I never really used the account, so I just forgot what it was for. I might change it in the future.
Okay. Okay.
Now it's murder, mayhem, and
Go
violence.
with what JR said. That's what it means.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna go with that.
A Demolition Man, where it was like murder, death, kill.
Yeah, the MDK laws.
Yeah. So, all right. You can find us, as usual, dear listener, on our link tree, which is linktr.ee, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast, where we link to all the things: the BitChute, the Rumble, the Twitter, the email, our Facebook group, where all the shenanigans happen. Facebook.com/group/Blasters and Blades podcast. We would love for you to engage us there. I will get the slash thing right eventually. It's funny I'd mess up the slashing on the slasher episode.
We totally to make it simpler, JR.
I know. I've only given the one to engage because we want them to join the conversation for this one. This is something you're passionate about.
I love the engagement. Keep it coming, boys
and then
and girls.
Absolutely. We have the website at anchor.fm/blasters tag blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters-and-blades, where you can support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on. And if you want to support the show more directly, you can follow us at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put the comments section that is for the podcast, and I will ensure that my co-host, Nick Garber, is duly medicated, and there's a fully staffed and stocked first aid kit in his house because, well, we kind of like him and we don't want him to bleed out. And with that being said, I would like to remind you, when you go to the books that you love to read, to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books. So do your part, people. And with that said, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For Nick Garber, Stabby Garber, and Doc Cisca, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And we appreciate you joining us, Stabby Jr. and Sean. And maybe we'll do this again for round 2 on all things murderous and mayhem.
Woo!
Woo!